Good afternoon and welcome to the Lotsa Helping Hands Inspiration Series. My name is Brooks Kenny and I come to you from Lotsa Helping Hands and just delighted that all of you are able to join us today. Each month we strive to provide a inspirational webinar that informs our members in their caregiving journey. And this month we are delighted to welcome Shirley Otis Green, who is a licensed clinical social worker and a senior research specialist in nursing research and education. And she is going to be sharing so many wonderful resources, tips, and ideas for those of you who are caring for a loved one who's experiencing pain. So Shirley, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
It's truly my pleasure. I'm so honored to have this opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you. So as we get started, I wanted to share that the Lots of Helping Hands Caregivers Helping Loved Ones in Pain webinar is proudly sponsored by In the Face of Pain. In the Face of Pain is a pain advocacy resource that provides inspiration, pain-related news, downloadable materials, and tools to inform and empower people with pain, healthcare professionals, caregivers, and other concerned individuals. On the website, there are resources specific to caregivers, and you can find these resources and more information at inthefaceofpain.com/caregiver. Before we launch into Shirley's remarks, I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking with you about Lotsa Helping Hands. I know that many of you on the line today have experienced Lotsa Helping Hands, whether as a recipient or perhaps a volunteer. But at Lotsa Helping Hands, we're really all about providing help to caregivers and empowering them to restore some health and balance to their life. So often when a caregiver is experiencing a particular episode, or they're just simply exhausted with juggling so many responsibilities, they're often asked, what can I do to help you? And so Lotsa Helping Hands provides the opportunity to create a private online community that brings together caregivers and volunteers in order to better organize daily life and to organize those family, neighbors, friends, people from someone's religious community, co-workers. They can all come together in a private community to organize that help. And if you go to lotsofhelpinghands.com, you can create a private community in order to get started. There's no requirement. It is a free service, and you can immediately create a community. This is an example one called Susan's Helping Hands, and this is only a demonstration. All of the communities at Lotsa are private. But what you'll find is you can create a community that organizes that help. And so the service includes a help calendar that allows the family to post the needs that they may require for helping, whether it's meals on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or rides to medical appointments on Tuesday mornings. And then the system sends reminders 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day in advance so that all the volunteers remember what they signed up for. The service also includes community building features that offer that emotional support so critical when you're undergoing any type of life challenge. So you can post photos and messages to the family as well as well wishes. And then finally, there's a vital information section within the community that allows the family to safely store and access important information, whether it be legal, financial, or health information, and it can be accessible just to those members of your community that you want to be able to access that information. So again, Lotsa Helping Hands provides this service. It is free and allows you to, in a private way, organize all those well-meaning offers of help that we so often receive when we're undergoing a crisis in our life. So we welcome all of you, those of you new to Lotsa Helping Hands and are interested in learning more. You know, you're welcome to check it out at lotsofhelpinghands.com. And for those of you who are joining us this afternoon and have been members for a long time, you know, we're pleased to have you with us today. And I know you'll be gaining so much inspiration from Shirley's remarks, which I'm going to turn it over to her now so that she is able to share with you information and resources for caregivers who are helping loved ones who are experiencing pain. So Shirley, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to you.
Thank you so much. It really is a wonderful program that Lotsa Helping Hands offers, and I'm delighted to be speaking with you here, both as a person who's referred others to that program, but also as someone who's a member of a dear friend's personal community. And I'm happy to share, again, experiences and thoughts from both of those experiences. In regard to our program today, we're going to have a chance to speak a little bit in regard to the importance of creating a plan to deal with pain, some tips and strategies so that you can speak more effectively with your healthcare team. And I want to also remind you as a caregiver to take care of yourself through this process. What you do and what you offer to a loved one is really, really important, and you need to be able to make sure that you take good care of yourself so that you can take good care of others. We're going to be sharing some positive coping strategies and again talking about some additional resources that you might find helpful. I think when a person has a serious diagnosis, here at the City of Hope we often deal with patients who are facing cancer, but other conditions could be in that same kind of category. When we have that kind of news, it just seems to change so many things in our lives. It changes us in regard to the possibilities of going back to work and dealing with money issues. We might have concerns about how this is going to impact our family and our friends. We might be worried in terms of our emotions. We might find ourselves feeling depressed or anxious or worried. And all of these feelings are not just for the patient who's got the news, but also for their loved ones. It's almost like a ripple effect that goes out. When we teach healthcare providers about dealing with people with cancer, we say that cancer affects not just an organ in a body, but a whole person. And more than that, it affects a whole family and community. So we, again, very much think that this is a time for folks to come together and rally to have all of their support system as much in place as possible. I'm from California, and so the metaphor that I use is it's as if the news of hearing that a person has such a serious illness is almost like a personal earthquake. That idea that suddenly the world isn't as predictable as we had thought, and we're not sure now what the future is going to be. And we might even have questions about whether or not we're going to be able to survive this experience. We're not sure what the next steps are going to be and whether or not this might be our last holidays or the last time that we'll be getting together. So as we think about a serious illness, we know that the patients and their loved ones are all in turmoil as they start to question these kinds of things. Even if the person has a very good prognosis, often in healthcare we're encouraging people to have treatments that we think are going to be very effective, and yet we know that people begin to question and wonder about their future. So it's a very normal reaction to have, and yet one where the family members might want to, quote, protect their loved one and not ask those kinds of questions or not share that kind of fear that they have. And clearly the patients will tell us that they also don't want to burden their families, and they'll, again, be protective of them as well. As a social worker, I often find myself going between the patient and family and hearing both of them say their concerns, their worries, their fears, and telling me that they're reluctant to share that with their loved ones because they don't want to be an extra burden. So we know that this can be a very difficult thing to accompany someone who's dealing with those kinds of worries. And that's a reminder for all of us to really recognize that caregiving takes great courage. I want to salute those of you who are caregiving for someone that you care about, because that is such a tremendous, tremendous thing to be doing. That willingness to be part of someone's life as they face these kinds of serious challenges, it really is an amazing thing and something that we applaud. When a person has a serious illness, it's not uncommon for there to be a component that can be very difficult to deal with physically. And pain can come in many different ways throughout an illness experience. It can be because of the illness itself. It can be because of the treatment that a person's in. It certainly can become worse if a person has recurrence. And people are often surprised if they go into remission, for example, again with cancer, that there can be debilitating aspects of their illness that continue even if the cancer itself is no longer a part of their lives. For some people, there's going to be a recurrence of the illness and a possibility of facing end-of-life challenges. And of course, as the illness gets worse, there's the ever-increasing possibility that pain is going to be an aspect then as well. Many of us fear that, and we again are here to talk today about the encouraging signs with the new medications that we have and the new treatment options that are available, as well as tried and true remedies and suggestions from the past that we can again very effectively manage a person's discomfort. We know that it's important, though, to have knowledge about pain and pain management, and that's what we're going to talk about today, so that you can feel empowered both as the patient or as a family caregiver or a loved one or friend or colleague, that you'll be able to have knowledge that can help you to assist someone who might be suffering. There's different kinds of pain. There's pain that comes quickly and lasts only a short period of time. We might call that acute pain. If you were to stub your toe or hit your thumb with a hammer as you were nailing, that sudden burst of discomfort, but that gets better very quickly. Unfortunately, though, with illness, there can be something called chronic pain, where it can last a very long period of time. Sometimes it lasts, in fact, almost all of the time, because the illness or the treatment is causing discomfort or pressing on nerves or pushing against an organ in such a way that there is this continuous source of pain. And our pain management strategies are very different between acute pain and chronic pain. It's also important for us to know that we might experience breakthrough pain. That can be intense pain that can be related to activity changes or stress. And again, we'll want to treat pain differently to prepare for breakthrough pain. One of the challenges for us is to get the right strategy to deal with pain that's caused by certain types of mechanisms in our body or certain types of treatment that we might have, and to address both, again, acute pain, chronic pain, and breakthrough pain in a way that can be really effective. So balancing all of these things is an important part of a comprehensive pain management strategy. I think the bottom line for us to know as we move forward is that there can be different sources of pain, and therefore we need different strategies to address each source if we're going to be the most effective. I wanted to share a little bit about a personal experience that might make this all come into clarity a little bit more. And so we're going to use a hypothetical patient, and this gentleman is going to be called Joe, and he's going to be representative perhaps of some of the issues and concerns that many people experience. In Joe's particular situation, he's just been diagnosed with a very serious form of cancer. He's been told that he has pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately that's one of the types of cancers that is in the lower abdominal area that can be associated with a lot of discomfort. He came, in fact, to his doctor's appointment because he was having some problems with his digestion, and he was feeling some cramping and discomfort when he went to the restroom, and he really knew something was wrong, but he was not at all expecting to hear that he had pancreatic cancer. So he's reeling from that new information, and like many people, he's almost overwhelmed. He's wondering about treatments and the impact that this is going to have on his life. And although he was a business owner and planning to retire, he had many expectations in regard to what his future was going to be. And suddenly everything seems to be in a quandary. He's not sure where to go next. His doctor is talking to him about chemotherapy, and he's worried because he also has diabetes and high blood pressure and other conditions that are common when a person gets a little bit older, and he's not sure how all of this is going to fit into his plans for that active retirement that he was looking forward to. He unfortunately doesn't feel like he has, although he has loving family, he doesn't feel like he has anyone that he can expect to be a reliable caregiver, someone who would be able to just drop everything and be able to take him to appointments, and this makes him anxious as well. And he's not sure what to do, and all of that begins to make him feel even worse. He's worried about the doctor talking to him in regard to pain management and medications. He's been someone who's prided himself in being able to be independent and not needing to have the help of other people. In fact, he sees himself as the kind of person who helps others, not as someone who's needed to rely on others to assist him. He is worried now as he thinks about impacting his family and wondering what they'll do with this news and how he can protect them so that they can go about their lives. He's always encouraged them to put their own families first, and although his children are older now and have children of their own, he doesn't want to worry them or upset them as they make their plans for the holidays that are coming up. Like many people, again, he's experiencing something that we might call a symptom cluster. Because he has some unrelieved pain, he's often also going to be at risk for feeling fatigue or perhaps depression or anxiousness. That can lead to impaired sleep and loss of appetite, which of course is related to loss of energy, which again makes him less tolerant of the symptoms. He has difficulty now concentrating and even difficulty making decisions. It becomes harder and harder for him to manage and cope. And that spiral can become very, very destructive. And so it's important for us to be able to pull this back. And as you can look at this slide that we have on the screen right now, you'll see that arguably by being able to address his pain, we might be able to change that spiral in a positive way and address many of the symptoms that are related to his suffering if we can manage to get his pain more under control. So we working in a cancer center really do believe that unrelieved pain has a profound impact upon a person's quality of life in many, many areas. If we're going to be able to deal with this, we need to have energy and courage, and yet when we're facing a serious illness, it can be very difficult for us to muster that kind of energy to do this work. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important to have someone else who can assist us through this process. We always encourage the patients that we see to find an advocate, a loved one, a friend, a colleague, someone who can come with them while they're going to their symptoms and assist them, especially with managing their pain and discomfort. We've encouraged that for Joe as well, and so he's kind of reluctantly agreeing that we can talk with his family, and he, in fact, has been encouraged to have a family appointment, to bring his family with a meeting with his doctor and the healthcare team so that they can understand what his doctor is prescribing and how his medicine should be taken and how they can assist him in getting to and from his appointments and getting the care that he's going to need so that he can feel better more quickly. Now, right away, we find that not just Joe, but in fact, even his children have some concerns about the pain medications that he's been prescribed. Although the seriousness of his illness is something that has caused some very serious pain and discomfort, they're worried that the serious medications could perhaps be problematic. Joe's of the generation that really worries about taking pain medications in particular because he's worried that he could become addicted or that this again could be something that could lead to other problems in his life. So we in the hospital spend a lot of time talking to patients and families about the importance of understanding the difference between words like addiction or withdrawal or tolerance, and we sometimes use fancy words like titration when we're talking about the use of pain medications. What all of this means is that it's important for a person who's been prescribed pain medication or for a family member who's got someone that they love who's taking pain medications to really understand what it's being prescribed and why we think it can be useful and what the concerns are that you have in regard to your loved one taking this kind of pain medicine. We want to make sure that you have the education that you need so that you can understand why this is being prescribed and how that medication should be taken to manage the symptoms in a way that's going to be the most successful, most effective, and that can relieve your concerns about your loved one. A person who has serious pain, who has a good healthcare team that can work with them, doesn't need to worry in terms of some of these concerns because, again, the patient is going to be able to be managed carefully so that pain medications can be appropriately prescribed and any symptoms or concerns can be appropriately addressed. It is important to make sure that you have the information you need, and at the end of this talk, we're going to give you some resources so that you can learn about the kinds of medications in more detail and more depth, And we're certainly going to encourage you to talk to your doctor or your healthcare providers to be sure that any questions that you have about these medications can be well met. Making decisions about these kinds of medicines takes a lot of energy. It's important for us, again, to be able to make sure that we can meet periodically to review the changing situation. And all of that means, again, this commitment to a long-term effort in making sure that everyone understands what's being prescribed, what kind of treatment is going forward, and again, what the side effects and symptoms are likely to be. I know that many people, especially folks that had prided themselves on being able to tolerate a great deal of discomfort, are very reluctant to take pain medications and have lots of concerns about that, and will be very eager to minimize the doses that they take. It's important to talk to your healthcare team to be sure that they know what it is that you're taking, how often you're taking it, and what other strategies that you're using to manage your discomfort. Having a comprehensive plan is the most important way to be successful and to be a good advocate for someone you love who's going through a difficulty like this. That's why I think, again, having a family conference is so important. I always encourage the patients that I see to ask for a time where they can have a little bit more than the normal clinic visit and have a healthcare provider meet with them with all of the associated family members that are part of the situation to come together and be sure that everyone is on the same page. What happens so often is that we'll recommend and maybe even do a good job of giving treatment information and pain management education to a couple of members of the person's family, and yet there'll be other members that might have concerns who didn't get that information and who can in fact raise some serious doubts in everyone's minds about what's going forward. In Joe's situation, as he took his chemotherapy, he found that he did have nausea and some vomiting, some discomforts, even problems with constipation, and he really benefited from coming together with his family and having a family meeting where they could all hear the same information and have a chance to be on board with his treatment recommendations. Joe himself had been reluctant to take the pain medication until his family was able to encourage him, that they supported and understood why he was being asked to take that, and to encourage him to be able to feel better because of the success of his medications. So when we think in terms of coping and helping a family member to assist someone who's going through this, we sometimes use this strategy that we call COPE, C-O-P-E. And C in this case stands for creativity, O stands for optimism, P for planning, and E for expert information. We encourage patients and families to be as successful problem solvers as possible through this process of dealing with a serious illness. And we want to give you as many tools as possible to help you to do that well. Getting expert information is one of the first steps that you can take that can be of assistance in this process. So again, seeking information, being part of webinars like this, following up with the resources that we'll offer at the end, those are great strategies to help you to be able to plan, to have a strategy in place that you can move forward on, that can be useful as you're assisting someone that you love who's dealing with some serious pain situations. It's also important that you're optimistic, that you look at this and say, we really think that we're going to be able to find a plan that's going to be successful so that our loved one is going to be able to sleep more comfortably, eat more enthusiastically, be able to have more energy during the day, be able to be more wide awake and alert and able to enjoy that person's life. So we encourage you to be optimistic as you move forward through this process, and to be able to brainstorm, be able to be creative as you think through different strategies. Sometimes we tend to face a new problem with old solutions, and I always encourage the patients and families that I see to realize that you've never dealt with something quite like this before, and although your past habits and strategies and ideas are very helpful and very useful, they can be even more effective if we think of them as a springboard to problem solve now outside of the box and think ever more creatively about how to deal with this situation that again is also new and different. What happens with illness or with treatment is that a person's situation changes over time. So it's important for us to have an evolving plan, because what will happen is that a person who's taking chemotherapy, for example, is going to be having cumulative effects from that over time. And so again, may find their fatigue gets worse in the several weeks that the treatment is going on. Or if a person's getting radiation or surgery, again, they might find that they begin to have differences as their healing occurs. And so we want to make sure that you have opportunities to communicate with the healthcare team and with your personal social support network in regard to this evolving plan. It's important to make sure that everyone is on board with the importance of relieving symptoms and is willing to come back together and problem solve more to make sure that the person's needs are well met. In Joe's situation, it was important for him to come together again with his family and make sure that they knew as his needs changed what they were facing on any given day so that they could give the healthcare team the feedback to be able to titrate or change his medication as his condition changed as well. Because he was very fortunate that his chemotherapy was relatively time limited, he was able to begin to feel much better very quickly. And that was an important part of adjusting his medications so that they were always at the right dose as his situation changed. He understood that he had a very serious condition and that it was quite likely that his pain might recur. And so he needed to know that if that were the case, he'd be able to change his medications again to account for that. So we need to know that what you take at any given time is quite possibly going to change over time. And that's one of the reasons that having a very broad vocabulary when you talk to your doctor about your discomfort is so important. And family members or caregivers can really help with this. So often what I'll find is that in sitting in a clinic appointment with a patient and their family talking to a doctor about their condition, that the family member will be able to assist the person with pain in describing what it's like, being able to ask questions and probes to make sure that the doctor understands what it is. Often the patient themselves will use language that is less clear, and again, sometimes will even minimize their discomfort. They're so glad to be seeing the doctor and having a few moments of their time that they'll typically say things like, "I'm doing fine," or "I'm doing great," or "I'm doing well," even though, again, the family member knows that they were up in the night having difficulties with perhaps their pain management. So being able to help people to describe their discomforts or their aches, using different language that feels more resonant for what is a descriptor for that person's experience can really help the doctor to be able to make sure that the right medication is being given. Again, all pains are different, and we want to make sure that our medications are targeted exactly to what that particular person's experiencing. So being able to have language like stabbing or shooting or achy or cramping or burning or throbbing, all of those kinds of words can help the doctor to make sure that they get just the right kind of medication to assist. It's also important to look for patterns. What kinds of things do we notice that make things better or worse? Being able to say, when I take the medication, I'm able to feel better within 30 minutes, but it wears off after about 4 or 5 hours, and then it starts to come back, and in fact has this kind of ebb and flow to it that, again, can help us to know that we need perhaps a longer acting medication. Being able to look at feeling better or worse in the evening or after we eat or when we exercise. Again, those are important patterns that can help the physician to make sure that the right medication is given and the right set of medications to assist. Often what will happen is that the doctor will give you not just one medication for pain, but a series of medications that can all work together in concert to make sure that the person feels as good as possible throughout as much time as possible on any given day. We can find that being able to use a 0 to 10 scale is also a good strategy to help people in understanding what that person's experiencing. being able to say 0 is no pain at all and 10 is the worst pain you can imagine, and then describing to the doctor over time how that number changes is very helpful. And that's where a pain diary can be very useful. Being able to keep track, and a family member can really assist with this, being able to keep track over a 24-hour period of what kinds of things seem to be worse, to make the pain worse, and what kinds of things seem to make the pain better, and giving a rating scale to that, that we can graph and look at over time. And then bringing that into your doctor's appointment is a really useful tool. And there are lots of ways that you can get that kind of diary formally, but just keeping track informally on an electronic device if you have one, or on a notepad, those all work just as well. So being able to know that whatever way works best for you is a perfectly fine thing to do, and it's important just to bring it in with your healthcare team at your appointments to be sure that those needs can be well met. Now, we know it's also important to use your healthcare team to address other kinds of challenges that a person may have. And if we aren't able to do these kinds of things, then indeed it's harder to have a person feel good about what's going on in their life, and therefore their pain management is also going to be harder. All of these things are interrelated. So being able to have a person feel relatively at peace with where they are in terms of their insurance or their financial situation goes a long way toward helping that person be able to prioritize on their physical needs and feel better at the end of the day in regard to their pain and symptom management. So we need to have a comprehensive plan in place, making sure that we address the areas that might make a person anxious or depressed or worried outside of just the physical concerns, and being able to address suffering in that more existential or comprehensive way is going to help us to manage the physical pain as well. Now, going back to the importance of understanding the particular medications that you take, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand the pain medications that your loved one is going to be prescribed. So being able to be the person that's there in the appointment and ask these kinds of questions is really, really invaluable service. How long is this medicine likely to last? When should we expect relief? How often can we take it again? Is this the kind of medicine that we should take with food or liquid, or the kind that shouldn't be taken with alcohol? What are some of the common side effects, and what kinds of strategies do you have to manage these? One of the most common side effects of many pain management strategies is having constipation, and that can be very painful in and of itself. In fact, it can be so bad that some patients will tell us that I don't take my pain medicine because I don't want to have constipation. Now, rather than having that strategy, it's better to be able to say, let's take the pain medicine, and also let's look at being able to take a stool softener or a laxative, and speaking to your physician or healthcare team to make sure that you get the right strength of those medications as well is an important step. Again, it's important for us to know that sometimes a doctor is going to prescribe a medicine at a lower dose than we think is ultimately going to be needed, because we want to give the body a chance to adjust to that medication. So we'll know that we want to take a stepwise strategy in increasing the medicine, and usually that means we'll take a stepwise strategy in decreasing it as well. So thinking about pain medications as something that are going to be needing to have a little bit of time for our body to get accustomed to them before they work the most effectively, and knowing that we don't want to stop them without, again, titrating the medicine on the way down is another important piece. Sometimes if we just discontinue a medication, we can have side effects from that discontinuation. So it's important to talk to the doctor if you're thinking about lowering your dosage or changing your dose in any way. Make sure that the physician and healthcare team knows what it is that you're thinking about, and that they can give you guidance as to how best to do that. Ideally, a person with a chronic source of pain is going to have a 24-hour plan for how to manage that. If we have 24-hour discomfort, we want to have a 24-hour pain management plan. So we want to have long-acting medications that can be supplemented with a breakthrough pain medicine should we need that. And there's lots of ways that, again, doctors and healthcare team members can provide us with strategies to do this. We want to make sure that we know how to address them should there be problems off hours, and again, know that there are strategies in addition to physical pain management that we can turn to as well. In Joe's situation, he found that by talking to his wife and his children, that he was able to find, in fact, that they were very willing to support him as he came to his appointments and spend time with him in a way that both he and they really valued. And in fact, at a later appointment, he was able to share that he felt closer to his son than he had in many years. They'd both been so busy with their work, and that they'd seen each other, almost on a perfunctory kind of basis, and didn't have the chance to really have intimate conversations as they had back when they were both younger. And he really appreciated this time of closeness that had evolved, and he realized that they had become a real source of support for him. He allowed them to know what was going on in a way that made him more vulnerable to them, but that they really were able then to appreciate that, and that closeness that came from that vulnerability was something that enhanced their relationship. And we find many people will tell us that over the course of their treatment, that although they would wish this not on even their worst enemy, nonetheless, there's some elements of benefit that they can find, both as a family member, in terms of feeling good about being a caregiver, and the patient feeling better and closer with their loved ones as well. If we're able to have a balance of good pain control with side effect and symptom management, we can have our loved one have an opportunity to focus on the things that really matter. So being able to spend some time thinking about the existential concerns that come with a cancer diagnosis or the diagnosis of another serious illness. Being able to think about what really matters in life and spending time so that there's less regret should a person be facing end of life. It's important for us, again, to be able to spend that kind of quality time with one another and be able to encourage our loved ones to spend energy, instead of dealing with pain and symptom management, instead being able to focus on the things that give their life real pleasure, and being able to move forward and use every day in the way that they will have minimal regret. If the person does have things that are problematic, it's important for us to be able to muster past strengths and see how we've coped with other difficulties that we've had to face, so that we can use those skills in focusing now on the difficulties of the illness. So being able to identify what it is that's worrisome for someone and being able to muster past experiences is a really great coping strategy. It's important for us to know how we use medications and how we've taken other medications, and to really ask if we use them differently than prescribed. I can't tell you the number of people, again, that will tell us that they use their medications, especially pain medicines, either more reluctantly than we prescribed, or more enthusiastically perhaps than we prescribed. And it's important for the physicians and healthcare team to have that knowledge, so again, that we can make sure that the person isn't having unintended side effects or other worrisome problems. We know that sometimes people have, again, challenges in past. Maybe they've had history of using medications inappropriately in the past. Perhaps they've used cigarettes or alcohol to cope with distress. We know that sometimes family members worry about people taking pain medicine or having exposure with other family members that might use their medicines inappropriately. And those are all important things, again, to share with the healthcare team, to be sure that everyone knows what that particular patient and family situation is, so that, again, medicines can be prescribed in the way that will be the most useful and the safest for everyone that's involved in the household. The good news is that cancer pain can almost always be relieved, and that there are many different pain medications that can be used, often again in concert, so that no one medication becomes so problematic. It's important for you to know, as a loved one with a person with cancer or some other serious illness, to know that there are different ways that we can prescribe that medication. Sometimes we'll take it through a pain pill, but a pain medicine can be given rectally or via a patch that sticks to the skin. There can even be implantable pumps where pain medicine is delivered on a continuous basis, through IV medications or under the skin medications. There's so many different strategies and different medications that can assist to minimize the side effects and to be sure that the person is getting absolutely the very best possible way of managing their symptoms. But in addition to the medicines that the doctor prescribes, there are many other kinds of things that have been used historically and by different cultures over, vast periods of time that have great benefit as well. Many people will know the benefits of using heat or cold to deal with discomfort, and that can also be useful when a person's dealing with a serious illness or injury. So being able to use massage or yoga or acupuncture, biofeedback, distractions of all manner, being able to exercise or have physical therapy, all of these are strategies that can sometimes be used to manage a person's pain. It's important, again, to speak with your healthcare team to be sure that everyone's understanding what kinds of strategies are being used, and to make sure that, again, everyone's on board. Being able to, at the end of the day, what matters is to be sure that the traditions that are most meaningful to you are being able to be honored, and that you feel that each day is as good as it possibly can be. Now, being able to tap into what matters to that particular patient and family is a real key. So you'll know your loved one best. Maybe your loved one would really benefit from seeing a funny movie, or being able to spend time with ritual or prayer, or being able to, again, engage in and be engrossed in music or literature. There are so many different ways that people are able to find distraction from pain that we need to be able to include in everyday's situation. It's also important for us to be able to reprioritize what a person's needs are when a person is fatigued or in pain. So being able to be using what we call energy conservation strategies is another important coping tool that can be very useful. For example, if a person has pain with activities, we want to make sure that the activities then that they do are the ones that give them the most satisfaction. Being able to enjoy time with a loved one is going to be the more important for that person than doing laundry, for example. We want to make sure that there are strategies in place to help that person to be able to do the things that matter most, and to see if we can, again, rally support, which is why programs like Lotsa Helping Hands are so important. I also encourage the family members that I see to think in terms of having a plan, but having also a backup plan, and ideally even backup plans to the backup plans. Being able to have a sense of who do I call at 2 in the morning before it happens is going to help that person to sleep at night more effectively. So being able to know that you want to prioritize what really matters and be able to delegate when possible to others is going to be an important way of taking care of oneself as you take care of others that are going through this. Now, it's also important to know that you might look back on a situation and say, wow, I think we could have done that differently. But that's human. We're all going to have opportunities, and even in healthcare, the physician and the team may also experience moments where they say, gee, we wish we would have done this differently as well. But that we want all of us to be able to be on board with the fact that we're all doing the best we can under the circumstances that we have, and to be able then to learn from whatever might seem like a mistake and go forward at that point with some generosity, knowing that we all did the best we could, and being able to say, well, now, knowing what we do, how can we make sure that we don't repeat that same situation? It's important for us, again, to know that this is a multidimensional aspect. Pain is something that, again, has so many triggers and so many possibilities for it to change over time, that we want to have an interdisciplinary team involved. We want not just the doctor, but the nurse, the social worker, the chaplain, the physical therapist. We want to have as many people on our side working with us, and we want our social support network to be just as strong. So being able to create this kind of sense of a healing team is really important, and being able, again, to be addressing the prioritizations of what really, really matters. And we can't do that unless we spend some time thinking about introspectively reflecting upon the things that are the most important to us. So whether we're the patient or whether we're the family members, we want to really be clear about doing what is authentically important to us, and knowing that we are going to minimize regret. We don't want to overextend. We want to balance sociability with solitude. We want to make sure that you have a chance to create memories that matter, and that, again, you minimize regret no matter what the outcome is eventually going to be. We're always hopeful that a person is going to be able to do better, live longer, be stronger, have more energy. And we know that eventually all of us are going to be facing the possibility of an end of life. We don't know whether this particular illness or this particular injury is going to be the cause of that. And we are always going to be optimistic that a person is going to have a recovery. But we want to make sure that we can learn from the past and recognize that, again, right now, we want to make sure that this is the time, that today is a memory that we are going to be able to treasure. It's important for us, again, to hope for the best, even as we prepare for the possibility of the worst. I find so many patients and families will tell us that they have a sense of relief when they address some of these very real, concrete challenges that we might have put off dealing with until the time comes that we hear those kinds of words of we're so sorry you have cancer. And yet many of the patients that we see are going to go on to live decades longer, and yet will say that they feel so much better for having attended to some of these issues. So regardless of what the future is going to be, I can't encourage you enough to be thoughtful about, again, having backup plans, being able to address these kinds of issues, taking this invitation to consider our mortality, not just again for the patient, but now for those of us who are the caregivers, to address these issues as well. All of us, again, can benefit from that kind of vicarious learning and being able to say, I don't need to hear those words before I know that it's important to address these concerns. So being able to, again, address our responsibilities in a way that we can put that aside then and know we won't have to feel so anxious about. That can go a long way toward helping us to sleep better at night in a very literal way. So it's important for us to know as a caregiver that we're making a real difference in the life of someone. This, in fact, can be transformative, not just for the patient who's receiving the care, but for the family members that are providing it as well. I really want to salute you, those of you who are willing to do those extra steps to be with someone when they face an illness like this. It's a tremendous, tremendous gift, and you need to make sure that you are able to take care of yourself through this process. Give yourself permission to take good care of yourself on all of the areas of quality of life that you've been worried about with your loved one. You want to make sure that you take as good of care of yourself as you're encouraging your loved one to take for him or herself. So being able to take care of your physical needs, your social needs, your psychological needs, and even your spiritual needs, this is really important. So make sure that you address your own priorities. Make sure that you treat yourself as if you're your own best friend or lover. Make sure that you learn new skills and enjoy the time that you have and the breaks that you can take from the caregiving as well. Seek information and education so that you can feel more competent in your caregiving. Again, I applaud those of you who are listening to this webinar and who are willing to, again, follow up with learning more about pain management and talk to other physicians and healthcare team members to make sure that your loved one is getting the care that they need. That's such an important gift. Being able to take care of yourself is really, really critical. And I really want to encourage you to have a commitment to excellence in your own self-care. When I think about pain, I think about it as pain plus fear equals suffering. That ultimately what we're concerned about with pain is not just, again, the physical aspects of that experience, but the broader overarching aspect of suffering. Wise people have said that pain is experienced in the present, but suffering is future-oriented. So often what we really worry about with pain is the worry that this pain is not going to be relieved, that we're not going to feel better in the future. In fact, we might worry that this pain represents the illness getting worse and that we'll be ever more vulnerable. And so in terms of being able to address a loved one's suffering in a profound way, being able to offer reassurance that you're there for that loved person, that you're going to accompany them through this journey, that your friendship is still strong regardless of their illness, that you're still a partner with them as they go through this experience, is going to go a long way toward reducing their suffering. And reducing that fear is going to reduce their pain. So I want to, again, really commend you for your good work. I like this poem and wanted to read it and share with you again It's been very comforting to me as I think about journeying with the loved ones that I've accompanied who've been facing difficulties in their life. Your life is a sacred journey. It is about change, growth, discovery, movement, transformation, continuously expanding your vision of what is possible, stretching your soul, learning to see clearly and deeply, listening to your intuition, taking courageous risks, embracing challenges at every step along the way. You are on the path exactly where you are meant to be right now. And from here, you can only go forward, shaping your life story into a magnificent tale of triumph, of healing, of courage, beauty, wisdom, power, dignity, and love. Thank you for all that you do for yourself and for all that you do for your loved one. Please know that there are many who want to accompany you on that journey. Let the hospital be of the most use possible. Encourage, if you have a person who's seriously ill, encourage the physician to give recommendations to other healthcare providers and then use them. Follow up with the possibility of seeing a social worker or a psychologist, a chaplain, a physical therapist. All of these people can be of resource to you. Ask if there's a pain service at the hospital or clinic that you see. Ask to see pain management specialists if they have not been provided. Ask for palliative care programs and ask for family conferencing when appropriate. Those are all such good strategies. Know that if your community offers community support programs and support systems such as Gilda's Club or others that might be available in your community. And know that there are many resources that are available to you. Programs might be available on the web, and there might be support programs that you can interface through telephone or other kinds of contact. I like to encourage people to have as much resources as possible, and one of the great books that's been written in regard to pain management that's available to patients and family members is this one by the American Cancer Society. It's called Pain Control, Understanding and Managing Cancer Pain, and it offers a lot of resources that you might find useful as you deal with this experience. At the end of the day, life is painful, but suffering is optional. Again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Wow, I know that everyone listening to this webinar, I am quite certain has a long list of tips and information that you shared, and probably more importantly, are going to be able to leave this session very inspired. Your wisdom and your ideas around self-care and really looking at the situation holistically, just such valuable and really inspirational messaging. So I appreciate it so much. We wanted to highlight for everyone another resource, everyone that's listening, as Shirley mentioned, being an advocate for yourself or a loved one is really one of the first things you can do about to stay informed. And you can stay up to date with pain advocacy information and resources easily by visiting, again, the In the Face of Pain website and downloading or ordering the free handbook for people with pain that has specific resources for caregivers. And again, you can find it at inthefaceofpain.com/caregiver. But you may want to take action and not know exactly where to start. You can also find inspiration and encouragement from other caregivers in the Voices of Hope section of the In the Face of Pain website. So you can download a fact sheet and action tools specific to caregivers and pain, again, at the inthefaceofpain.com/caregiver website. So we encourage folks who are listening to take a look at that resource as well. We're now going to turn it over to the Q&A portion of our webinar. And if you look on the control panel in the GoToWebinar area, you should see a questions section. And I encourage you to type in your question there, and we certainly can answer them for you. The first one that just came in is, are copies of your slides available? And I'll let Shirley message about the specific slides, but I can tell you that we are recording this webinar. And if you registered for it or registered and participated, we will be sending out an email when the slides are available, so you can certainly view it again or share it with others in your family or in your organization.
I think that's a really great reminder. In fact, being able to share this kind of information with the rest of your social network, I think, is a really great idea. So I'm so delighted that that will be easily available to all of you to do that.
Great. This is another question that came in from someone as a family member. So this one I'm going to give to you, Shirley. As a family member, but not the primary caregiver, what's the best way to support a loved one who's in pain? What types of questions should I ask, and how can I help the caregiver?
A great question. I think that being able to offer concrete assistance is so important. So again, if you're in that kind of next layer out, you're not the one maybe taking the person to the doctor, you're not the one sitting up at night if that person's ill, but you're kind of that next layer that kind of watches that and is concerned. Being able to offer concrete strategies of things that you know that they're going to need is really useful. And again, that's where Lots of Helping Hands can be very effective. Depending upon what your own gifts and talents are, being able then to, if you're the person who's really interconnected with the web, you're the kind of person who knows what's going on in the internet and can download information, you might be the most useful by being able to be the person who does the outreach and advocacy in terms of getting educational materials, sharing things like this web program, with the rest of your family members, downloading that wonderful resource from Purdue, being able to be the source person that gets information for the loved one can be a really great thing that your gift is. I know that again, being able to personalize what your talents are is so key. So again, if you're the person who's always been the buddy that takes the patient, to the movies, being able to still maintain that connection and still be that source. Maybe the person no longer at this point in time is feeling up to going to the Cineplex, but maybe being able to come in with 6 great movies and let them pick and have movie night at the house, could be a way of taking that talent and using it for the particular situation that your loved one faces. But in a very real way, I think that the most useful thing that all of us can do is to let the loved one know that we're there for them. And so whether it's again to the primary caregiver or to the patient who's going through the experience, being able to say, that I've got your back. I'm here. I love you. That love is solid. Our relationship is solid. And being able to come back to that person and ask them, what you can do that can be most useful. Offer some things, but being able to ask is really important. And being able to anticipate some things, again, can be very helpful. So knowing that a person is getting chemotherapy means quite likely that person's going to be fatigued, and quite likely the immediate family members are going to be pretty exhausted as well, taking into account all the appointments and the disruptions that go with a treatment regime like that. So being able to offer concrete kinds of things, saying, hey, I was mowing my lawn, thought I'd come by when I had the lawnmower out, and I'm happy to mow yours as well. Those
Right.
are really wonderful strategies that can be useful. So again, I applaud you for asking, and I think being able to ask that loved one that you have in your life is a really key point.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. We completely agree from Lots Helping Hands perspective. And so often, family members aren't sure how to answer the question, what can I do to help? And so I love the example of saying, I've mowed, I'm taking care of my yard, can I take care of yours? And being really specific, can I drop off a meal on Tuesday evening? Sometimes those types of specific offers of help are easier to say yes to, aren't they?
Right, exactly. And if a person's not able to say, I can take you to the doctor on Thursday, but I am able to say, I can take your kid to basketball on Wednesday, being able to see that that's just as great a need is a wonderful gift. So to the degree that you can, again, by knowing that loved one and knowing the things that they would have done routinely on their own, and then be thoughtful about how you might be able to pick up the slack and either do something or approximate something, to address what's going on for them.
Right. Great tips. Great tips. Well, we are closing out the end of our hour here. So I just want to leave everyone with a few ways to get back in touch with us. Certainly, you can always reach out to Lots of Helping Hands, connecting with us, certainly on social media. But if you're in a community or wanting to start one, you can email us at support@lotsofhelpinghands.com. I also just wanted to call attention to folks listening about a campaign that we launched in November called the Year of Helping Hands, and it's very apropos to what we're discussing today. The idea being that there's more than 65 million caregivers in our country who do need help with those specific tasks that we just talked about, and we're inviting the nation to make a promise to help a caregiver in 2013. And so if you go to lotsofhelpinghands.com/I promise, you can post your promise and share with us and the larger community something that you might do for a caregiver. So if you're listening and you are a caregiver, this is also a place you can send your friends and loved ones if they're looking for ways to help you. The ways that you can get in touch with us, again, Shirley has been so generous, not only with her time and expertise here with us this afternoon, but is also sharing her contact information for folks who are listening. And as it often happens, you hop off and you have 5 more questions. So we certainly welcome you getting in touch with either Shirley or the team here at Lotsa and sharing any thoughts or inquiries that you might have. Finally, I just want to close, as we often do, with our vision, which is a world where everyone can give and receive help through the power of community. And on behalf of the entire team here at Lotsa, Shirley, I want to thank you for so much being a part of our vision this afternoon and moving forward. And thanks to all of you who are listening today and gaining new information in support of your own journey or for your loved one's journey. We really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.